Good afternoon. Welcome to Hobby Hi-Fi. We're into April. Unbelievable. We've made it through the winter. Winters seem to get longer here every year. Every year I get older, which is every year. Today, I just want to talk a little bit about a wonderful amplifier of my brother's called the Adcom GFA-555. Now, this is a 2-channel amp that was made, I believe, in the 80s. And it's good for 200 watts per channel, I believe. And recently we had trouble with the toggle switch, the rocker switch, rather. The original was not always able to turn the amp on or off. It seemed to be a bit intermittent, so I figured the switch itself was tired. It's been giving problems for a few years, as I recall, and finally got around to replacing that. And I just wanted to try to make things a little bit easier for some of you folks that, like me, try to keep these amps going, because there's good chance that we may never see amps like this again. When you crack the top on this bad boy, it's got a couple of huge caps in there, reminiscent of a B&W amp I worked on. At one point, the 4130, I can't remember the model now, but sometimes you open the top on these and you see a couple of nice Coke can capacitors, and you have to think to yourself, wow, what kind of juice can these things provide? Just an amazing amount of current when needed. And also a large toroidal transformer inside, so it's one of the round units that it's laid out quite neatly inside. And I believe this was a John Curl amp, who's one of the famous producers of fine audio equipment, in a very select crowd of people that were renowned for having a talent for building wonderful sounding circuits and amplifiers. And this one is a little different in that it does not have speaker relay protection circuitry built in, which a lot of people will say yay, because that eliminates some of the signal path. But a lot of people will also say, hey, I want my speakers protected if there's a short. So this is one of those amps that you don't really want to short. So make sure that you got all your speaker connections tight, and double check that there's nothing touching, and that all your connections are tight and firm and trouble free, to eliminate any chance of having any problem with with a short and send a signal to your speakers that may fry something quite quickly. So these circuits today, they're complicated enough so that you may be able to avoid that with a particular circuit correction program, which would shut down parts of the amplifier quickly if detected. And so none of that type of highfalutin circuitry in this amp. This is an old school, no frills type of situation where it's right up my alley, because I've never been one for tone controls, and I've never been one for really for additional level controls on amplifiers either. That's what your preamp is for, and you don't want to really matching. It's okay. You may have a situation where you want to give a little bit more juice to one channel, or there are situations where level controls can help on an amplifier. And it can be fun to actually run a CD player straight to your amplifier. If you have level controls, then you can bypass your preamplifier, which is an interesting philosophy that I tried, and I really do appreciate it, because what you're doing again is you're reducing the whole need for a preamplifier, basically. And so the other way to do that would be really any other kind of a variable output. And some CD players actually have variable outputs, so you can plug your CD player straight in and just use the volume control. It's built into some of the old school Sonys, especially, that had a variable output control via remote control. So you can sit back and control your CD player. And, the question always becomes, is it a quality volume pot? And some of the cheap volume potentiometers that you may find in some of the inexpensive CD players may be affecting the sound. So it's one of those where if you can get a good quality item, you're gonna reap the benefits directly on that output. But more specifically, what I wanted to talk about today, before I wrap this up around 6 or 8 minutes, hopefully, is the fact that this rocker switch was a bit tough to find. Now, I'm a member of a couple of different forums, Audio Karma, StereoNet, DIY.org, I believe it is, do it yourself, audio or whatnot. I forget all the names, but there's several, forums for anything that you want to do. If you're a Volkswagen lover, you can find, a million different forums. But so I subscribe to a few of these because I'm always asking people, hey, how do you do this? And so I put out the question to some people in the forums regarding the part replacement for this Adcom power switch, and this rocker switch was not really easy to find. So I thought I would share some of the secrets that I have found along the way to save some people some steps and some trips like it did me, because I'm sort of bootstrapping it here. But I think it's important to share this information that we find, and the people that like to do this type of thing can greatly cut down on the stress and the time and the money that it takes some people to start from scratch, not having any information previously on anybody sharing anything. And it's possible I didn't find it, but I didn't find it to the nearest or to the closest good enough to figure out what to do. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to do this myself. So I did not pull a switch, and I probably should have pulled the old switch. And I also should be a little bit more handy with the calipers so that I could have measured exactly the dimensions of this switch, because it's got as you can see, a bit of a black bevel around each edge of the switch, and inside, this is what you call a dual pole single throw switch. And I had this conversation with my brother. Now, somewhere on one of the previous forums, that somebody had recommended or sent a link to a dual pole dual throw switch, and that definitely wouldn't have really worked in this situation. And so I got bad information, so I wanted to kind of clear this up. This is a simple on and off switch. The one that was originally in this unit was black. This one is red, and this one is supposed to be illuminated. However, when I plugged it in, turned it on, I didn't see much illumination there. So we'll have to see when it gets dark whether there actually is an LED behind the switch itself. Now, there is a power light already on this that still works, but it would be nice to have an illuminated switch. So we'll see what happens. Either way, it's wired properly, and in the back of the switch you will see that there's a couple of clips, and you'll see 4 what they call quick connect tabs to install, and the wires from the amp are already provided, with that type of slip-on connector. So it's a very simple repair once you get the old switch out. So luckily the old switch was a little bit looser than this one, and there's a couple of tabs, plastic tabs on the bottom and the top that will compress so that you can actually get that in there, and then it will afford a bit of a spring resistance to hold it in place a bit on its own. Now, the biggest problem with this was finding the proper size, like I said. So what did I do? Well, I called a million places and I said, what do you have for rocker switches? It looks to be, about an inch by almost an inch, that kind of thing. And, I got, well, we don't, what amperage is it? Okay, well, this one was listed as a 16 amp, 250 volt switch, I believe. And so I decided, looking at the old switch, that maybe a 20 amp switch would be even better. However, the two switches that I got that were 20 amp did not fit. And so this is a metal faceplate, and it's not really going anywhere until, you want to take a Dremel tool or some kind of a file to it, and I didn't really want to do that. And I understand that Adcom does still sell these power switches, but somebody, if I did get the right information, said that they would be $30-something plus shipping. And so it seems a bit ridiculous because I paid $5 for this one, and I bought it at Grainger. I believe Grainger is a national outfit that supplies electrical parts and outdoor equipment and such, kind of like a large hardware store. I don't know exactly which, an industrial type of supply house or whatnot. And so they were the only ones in the state that I could find that had the rocker switches. Had a few issues with customer service originally, getting the address straight and being able to go to Portland and pick up a couple of parts. But we did find a couple, and I got them home, and they were the wrong size. So at this juncture, I'm going to say it will behoove you to pull the old part out, the old screw out. When you go down to the hardware store, bring it with you. I already knew this, but somehow I think to myself, no, I don't want to pull that switch because in case I can't find one, maybe I'll just leave it as it is, But when you do that, you're going to cost yourself another trip. Now, Portland is about a 45-minute drive from here, so you can see, I did kind of have to go that way, so it's not all for nothing, but I'm talking an hour and a half worth of driving just to get the two series of switches that I had to be able to go and get before I found the right size. So take it from me, do a little bit more and get a little bit more knowledgeable with measuring devices and whatnot. And so and if you can, bring the part with you, and that way you're a little bit more likely to find what you're looking for. The last time I had some screws on something that were Torx or were, a metric type of a strange headed countersunk tapered job and, little suckers. And so I went to the hardware store. He said, no, the lowest I've got is a 3mm, and that's too big. So I bought, a bunch of screws. I thought that was just right by looking at it with the eye. No, too big. So what did I do? I ordered some 2s because I always thought, hey, 2 is the next size down from 3, right? No, got those in, they're too small. You know why? Need a 2.5mm, okay? And then so it gets a little bit crazy. It's not easy to trial and error this stuff. So that's why I'm making this video. We're at 13, almost 14 minutes, and I've rambled on for too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right to it and give you this part number, because I couldn't find this information anywhere. And so we're going to put it on YouTube, and YouTube is going to have this information, and Hobby Hi-Fi is going to have this information. So hopefully somebody, if they have a problem with their GFA-555, they go on YouTube and they punch that in and say, look at this, here's my answer. Isn't the internet wonderful? This is a Carling Technologies. The switch that came out of there before was not a Carling. I forget the name of it now. Anyway, they're all kind of the same. I bet you they're all made in China. This one says Mexico on it. So part number 3XC58. Okay, and that's a Carling Technologies part. I found mine at Granger. You might be able to find these at Mauser. You might be able to find these at your favorite electronics store, online or not. But that one went in there tight as a son of a gun. I'll tell you what. I at first didn't think that this one was going to fit. And it took a little bit of pressure, and I'm not saying just a little bit of pressure to get that to snap in there. But it did go. And I guess you're going to have to trust me on this one that so far it's the only part that I found. There may be a better one, and maybe the original Adcom part, if they still will sell it to you for under $50. Maybe a better fit, I don't know. But $5, we're out of the water. I've turned it in, I plugged it in and turned it on, and everything works fine. And so switch fixed, information given, loving it. Party on. Talk to you soon. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you enjoy this.